Another session here using Rhino 3D. Dog's going a little crazy out of nowhere. So we have this activation, right? Spatial activation is a case study I've been working on in order to come back to some of these Rhino tools that I find really useful for modeling and for basically just pitching designs. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to rebuild this using SubD modeling. And the reason we're going to do that is because last time we had a little bit of trouble modeling this corner here specifically. So we're going to go ahead and try and see if we can use the SubD tools to not have to use NURBS to create this curve here. We can always convert SubDs into NURBS if we need to for, say, fabrication or something. But yeah, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about some tools for SubD that are quite useful as well. So for now, we'll just go into a fresh layer within this file that we can later come back to. We're just going to start setting out the base. We'll set this out as like a magenta. And we'll just hide everything else but our reference. We're gonna just kind of do this from scratch. So SubD modeling, what is it? It's basically mesh modeling, but you have a subdivision applied to the mesh. So what that means is if we had a mesh cube, let's say, right, we've got a whole bunch of UVs or like faces on this thing. So if I select any one face, holding Control-Shift-Click, I can move just this one face and deform the mesh, just like that. So it's different from NURBS, where NURBS are calculated through math. So if I just do a box right next to this, you'll see it has a full face, right? It's not split up into smaller faces. And if I were to grab any one part, like say an edge instead, right, we get that happening. So it's kind of shifting this around, but say like I do a twist, right? It's still using math to build out what the curvature of the shape should be, given its different points and edges. So that's a little bit different, because if I were to just select this whole row, or let's say I build out a mesh cube that is just one face. So I start to do a cube, and before, let's try that again. Okay. So before we draw it, we actually have to change the count. So X count, Y count, Z count. So for X, we'll just do the 1, and Y as well, and Z as well. So we'll get a mesh box here that is more similar in topology to our cube. So if we grab this edge and we move it along, it's a similar effect. But if I were to twist it, this is now a broken face. And we know that because there's actually like a hard edge here connecting these 2 points. However, there's no actual edge there, right? So that face is actually not valid in a way. So that's why we do, well, it's not valid in the sense where it wouldn't be accurate. Like in order to export that for say like 3D printing or CNC machining, and it tried to read that face, it's not gonna come out as it looks. And it didn't even have a curvature on it, right? It had a hard edge. But the reality is like that one face isn't actually a face that can be read by software, unless the software itself is able to translate that into something else. But typically that's when you encounter a glitch, when you have an issue like that, a topology issue we call it. So what's up with SubDs? Why are we talking about this? Well, because SubDs, if I were to do a SubD cube, which I only, oh, here it is, SubD box. And before I draw it, I'm going to make sure that it also has just a count of 1, just as the other ones, so we can differentiate. Okay. So this is just a face of 1, although it looks like it, or a division of 1, which looks like for a SubD it splits into 2 faces anyway. So if I hit tab, you'll see we're getting actually a similar cube to the one on the right for this SubD. That's because it's also a mesh, but by hitting tab, we're previewing that subdivision that's happening, which is the smoothing of these faces basically, versus no subdivision, right? So if I were to modify it from this, I can kind of tell what I'm doing with the bones. Like say I move it out this way. And also with meshes, you get this little dot on the arrow right here, which means you can extrude. So that creates another sets of faces to continue building on. But here I can twist this. And then if I hit tab, right, it still sort of curves. on that SubD geometry. So anyway, that's how you want to use that. So let's get started. We'll do a cylinder and we'll do our best to hit the middle. Sure, that's fairly close. And I'll just approximate here. I think I did go with 30 feet before, so since I remember that number. Oh, 30 feet in, not in radius, but in diameter. Okay. And then we can build up. I think I did the last one at 14 feet. But always check that. Boom, there we go. So we had, if we scroll back up through commands and we look up here in the command box, we see that we had set 4 faces, except 8 for around. So 4 faces at the top. 4 faces where? 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Eh. Vertical faces 4, around faces 8. Anyway, I guess let's see what the difference would be if I did 2 vertical faces. Okay, so yeah, that's less faces there than we have here, but this actually helps with our shape. So we want to be able to select this whole loop, right? Like basically I want to be able to have this part of the geometry essentially just match down into the floor plate I have here. So this is more of a sculpting approach for modeling than a precision modeling, right? As opposed to last time. So by sculpting, I mean, I'm just going to start selecting these faces and just pushing, pulling them, stretching them in order to get what I want. I'm less concerned with typing numbers and more concerned with just pushing and pulling. But I could always, you know, be precise in my sculpting method too. But for the sake of just concept here, I'm gonna sculpt. So I want to move this whole edge here to match the line that we have here on the bottom left. So in order to do that, I want to quickly select this whole loop. So what we'll do is we'll go up here under our SubD tools. We have select edge loop. I'm going to select that whole loop. There we go. Enter. Awesome. And now I can slide it down with my gumball. There we go. And just make that match. Same thing for the top. So we actually need to, I think I shrunk the other one as well. Let's take a look back at the volume. It ended up being taller, but here, yeah, I can just match what I had. So same thing. I'd want to grab both this top loop and this second loop, hit enter. And from side view with my model back, just kind of move this up to make my lines match. All right, you can go away again. Oh, I didn't move the center point, so that kind of concaved this thing inward, which is fine. I'll just grab it, move it just a bit higher than what it is initially. I suppose I could show if I wanted to select something besides the edge loops. If I do the edge loop selection again, I'll show this loop, enter. I can also hold Control Shift and add in elements to my selection. So if I click here with Control Shift, boom, there we go. I selected that vertex, that little point right there. And now we can move it all together so that vertex is the one that ends up at top. I can also, once again, want to be more precise than just what I'm doing. Do that one more time, but I'll do the move command and I'll select off that vertex. I'll bring this back. I'll hold shift so that I'm locked in, and I want to turn off all snaps except for projection. So that if I hold shift, I'm just scaling up and down, and I can boop, snap to something that's there without dragging the entire geometry up against it. There we go. Okay, hide that back up. All right, so we have a general shape. Now let's say I want to like punch in with the windows and I want these faces to just move in. Well, I can do that. In fact, I can flip them around if I scale them like this and then move them in. Although of course that ends up with distorting this whole shape a little bit too much, right? So what we need to do is kind of create more cuts on this geometry that will add more edges where we want them. So I'll undo. And essentially, bringing back this one, we want to cut in an edge for wherever the window would end on both sides. So we'll do InsertEdge. So we'll type in InsertEdge for that command. Select from edge loop. So we have to pick an existing edge loop to add from. Let's say I want to do this one here, right? It's just this slice. I want to replicate this slice right in the middle. So I'll hit enter, and there we go. We're creating another slice there. Although it is messing up our overall topology, and that's because it's a cylinder. So we'll check out if I do the command again. It says mode full. I'm gonna type a different mode. Range? No. Let's see if I change type from loop to ring. Yeah, I want to do a ring. So if I select these, just to try and see if I can. No, in order to do a ring, it has to select something that goes all the way around. So we'll go back to loop, and we'll select this whole edge and its opposite edge. Let's see if by having it mirror on both sides and actually completing the loop doesn't destroy our topology like that. So no, now we're just getting it on both sides. So in order to avoid too much sculpting here, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna first do the distortions that I want to make. So push that in. Oh, even just pushing it in without flipping it kind of gives better results. I'll end up doing a SubD boolean to kind of clean this up. But similar technique we were just thinking about. So we'll do InsertEdge, and that way we can kind of do it from this point wherever it is that we need to add some detail. So we'll do InsertEdge. I'll select this edge here in the front. Okay, so I can add one more to, oh, it added on the other side. There we go. Wherever you're hovering your mouse, that's where your edge is gonna kind of pop in. It looks like mine came in on both, on that side anyway. Actually, I'll activate the option for both sides. So if I do this edge and I have both sides on, which I believe I do now, yeah, it's creating a cut. I want to just hover over it, but it moves away when I do. But it's creating an edge loop on both sides of this orange line. So I can have one closer to the edge, just like that, and have one follow shortly after. Now if I select this new edge, I can kind of move it up. There we go. Get a bit more solid. I actually like this organic look. So the SubD modeling can also just lead to a different aesthetic, which this can always again be converted and paneled and whatnot. So if we take a look at the openings, this one is a bit more square, a bit more, yeah, more doable for sure, because you have more straight lines. And if you wanted to go something even a bit more futuristic or organic, then there's this, right? And we can always use SubD modeling. I like to use like the sculpting technique to get to something quick. And then once I get to a shape I like, but I need to kind of fix some parts, typically in design development, which would come after schematic, I would turn this purple shape into something that's a bit more doable, like this purple, or this magenta shape, turn it into something that's more doable, like this purple. But yeah, it's all part of just like exploring form. These different tools kind of give different results, and it's good to kind of know how to match that to an aesthetic that you want. So you'll see this is a bit more playful, which is good for conceptual. Alright, I don't know if I want to pull this all the way back. I mean, why not? If I pull this all the way back looking at it in floor plan, I can create the full cavity inside for the room. That doesn't look bad either. In floor plan, I mean. So if I wanted to kind of mess with these edges a little bit more, we'll do InsertEdge once more. And now if I want to do it to both sides and I want it to be mirrored, I should be selecting it on both sides. So we'll select that edge and this middle edge. Let me hide my reference. Cool. So if I go to plan view, you'll see that they're actually opposites, right? They're moving in opposite directions. So I'll try to shift that with offset mode, proportional. Nope. Absolute. Both sides. Yeah. So if I do it to both sides, it'll end up being symmetrical. It'll break the cylinder shape, but you know what? It's kind of cool when something isn't a perfect shape either. It gives it more character. We can always add in another loop edge here to be able to move this sort of face and turn it more into a circle if we wanted to do that. But let's say we just wanted to be able to have the option to manipulate that edge a little bit. So we'll do insert edge, and then I'll do the whole way around here. Oops. The whole way around. I'm not sure if I'm able to use like selection commands with another command. Let's see. Well, you can't do two simultaneous commands, but if I use the select edge loops tool here, it kind of selects these in groups. And then if I just initiate, oh yeah, select edges from both ends in loop. Yeah, so it did just kind of pause the other command and let me do the selection command. So that's good to know. I never tried that before. Okay, so here we're creating an edge on both sides, which is fine. We'll put that right there. And let's take a look if I hit tab, what this looks like. So this is what it looks like as a rectilinear mesh. And you can actually see it's self-intersecting itself, which is not great, or it's self-intersecting. But I got this edge loop up here. I am missing this connection here, but that's fine. I'm kind of gonna go with it. And I'm gonna select these pieces, or points even. I'm gonna select these points. And by holding shift, I can scale them in and out. Although it's still doing it like in a square formation. Yeah, it's becoming less and less Apple as I break the main cylinder, I realize. This is kind of cool though. This reminds me of some like houses in Dragon Ball. If you ever watched or watched the show or read the books, the manga. Yeah, kind of bummed it's not a perfect circle anymore, or cylinder, but that's fine. I guess I could fix it in wireframe like this. So if I grab these points and I kind of just start stretching this out in top view to make it into a perfect octagon, or as close as I can, just kind of sculpting it out. That's pretty good. What's up with those? Oh, that's the interior. Nope. So what's happening here is wherever we have an intersection here, like too many curves or too many points connecting, and there's no curve here to infer that, we're getting like these harder edges, which makes sense. Like wherever you get a more concentration of curves, you're gonna get more defined edges. So the spacing here is kind of what's doing that, really, and not having like a smooth line right here. It'd be very tedious to start kind of doing this. So for perfect shapes, definitely better to start with NURBS. However, we do have, let's see, a command that we could do ToSubD. So if we bring back this one, right, so all these shapes that are NURBS shapes, we can select them. And we can do, oh, I was meant to copy. And copy them over. And we can do ToSubD. So if we do need like a perfect cylinder like that, oh, we have to do faces. We can select these faces or just all the outer faces of this thing. Cool. And then hit enter. We have some options. Use mesh control points, mesh creases, no. If you want to use the creases or corners, use the surface location, so it'll happen right there. Surface corners, no. If the surface had any like sharp corners, do they transfer? We don't have any, I don't think. Or I think we might. Let's just turn that on. And delete input, yes. We want to delete this when we create our SubD, just so they don't intersect. Cool. So we see like now this is a SubD. It's a perfect cylinder. We could start building out from here as well, now that we have this. So if I were to just scale this flat, sort of, I could have done that, I think, more gracefully with scale 1D. But yeah, I mean, we can take that route. We can also do that from a mesh. So if we have a mesh, let's see, mesh tools, we do a mesh box, or let's do a mesh cylinder, keep it consistent. Just want to turn on my snap points again. Oh, vertex, right. Vertex are points on SubDs and meshes, if you were wondering. So we do a cylinder mesh here. One more time. There we go. Why is it disappearing? Anyway. Okay. We can do a mesh to SubD with SubDFromMesh. SubD from, or is it still ToSubD? Is my thing outdated? ToSubD. Yeah, that's the same command, ToSubD, and we see that it just turned it. It just gave it a subdivision, basically. Like, that's both of them with no subdivision, which was this one didn't have from the beginning. And if you just hit ToSubD from a mesh, it just applies it. Now it's a SubD. And I think there was a way to revert it back. Maybe not. I don't have that in my notes. But we could do a SubDOffset. So for example, let's say we want to bring back this original thing, or we want to use this to basically create our glass panels within this shape. I can lower this down. I'm just going to roughly put it into place. Cool. If that's going to be our glass, we could do SubDOffset to basically add some thickness to this piece. So we could do SubDOffset or offset SubD. There we go. So the arrows are pointing outward, right? Let's say I'd want it to add glass thickness. Yeah, we'll do it outward. That's fine. Distance 1, we'll do like 1/2 inch. And solid, yes. So I want it to have like a cavity. Both sides, no. Delete input, yes. Okay, so if we select that, we should have what we see from the top. Oh, it just offset it outward, so it didn't make it right. So if I undo that, we do offset SubD. What went wrong there is I intended to give it a thickness, whereas all I did was like expand it outward, which is what it's doing. Offset SubD to expand outward, and that's because I hit keeping it solid, which I do want to keep it solid, but I don't want to delete the input, because now when I have both, I can use my SubD tools, and there should be a mesh boolean. I don't know if there's a, I think that's the one that we use, mesh boolean difference, to basically subtract from the outer one the inner one. Yep, so we just got it. It's just a little hard to see because it's very thin, but just to illustrate the point, let's say we create another cylinder intersecting it, and we do mesh boolean difference, subtract from this one with this one. Oh, it's not working. Is there a specific one for SubD? Ooh. Wish I had my chat open. It's like glitching out. I haven't been able to see if anybody's commented. Or let me know what the Boolean operation is for SubD. Ah, I see EM and Generate are on the chat. Yeah, we're using SubD this time. And Dragon Ball, man, for sure. And hey there, EM. Thanks you guys for dropping in on the chat. Sorry it took me this long to open it up. My usual window is glitching out and I can't see it. But Boolean union of SubD geometry. If this is one of those Rhino moments where it's like, yeah, you can't do that. It's so annoying. Yeah, this is, I think, an answer I've come across before. In Grasshopper, there is a fuse component which works on SubD. Yeah, that seems to be doing that really, really well. But that is so frustrating that I don't know if there's any other hit. Reddit for the win. You can turn a SubD object into NURBS with toNURBS command. Okay, so if for whatever reason we can't do a Boolean difference on SubDs, which is a loss. There's a lot I have to... I love Rhino in a lot of ways, but I have complaints. And they're the same complaints everyone else has because they're the same issues people bring up in their forums that they just like haven't dealt with. But I'm excited for Rhino 8. We'll see. Maybe they solve for that. So let's try that. So if we do, I guess the solution now is to do toNURBS. Okay, and then that makes this a really complicated geometry. We do the same thing for here. And so now we can delete our SubDs. Let's try Boolean difference from this with that. And it's likely working because it's freezing. So if you wanted to do Booleans with SubD, I guess that's the way to go. You got to do toNURB so that you have NURBS. So you could do just a normal Boolean operation, Boolean difference, Boolean union, whatever. And then go back to SubD. No, just kidding. Boolean difference failed. Well, that's probably because there's way too many phases going on here in a weird way. But all right. So I set out to kind of fix that little feature over there. And here it's even more distorted. So let's focus on that just for a sec. For starters, this geometry or this... I should have added more faces here. Should have added more cuts before I started pushing and pulling these faces. So we'll just hide this for now so we can see the shell. And we'll add a... I would like this loop cut to just extend. We could do SlideEdge, we could do RemoveEdge, or we can do some bridging. So I think I'm going to just insert an edge. Try to tailor that a little bit. Select edges. So if we want to take, not that one back there, but just the, not just that one, but these two from the top. Ah, that's not acting as expected. So if we take off both sides. Okay. I guess that is acting as expected, but let's just, yeah, if we create that new set of faces and then we do SlideEdge instead with the SlideEdge command, or is it edge slide? Edge slide. All right. Another quick little lookup. Slide. So the SubD commands, they have changed a little bit. So I guess my notes are a little outdated. I gotta fix that. But yeah, now it's just slide. So if I were to select these, I don't just want those though. I want both. I want to add an edge loop onto the other side. So insert edge. And it's only happening on the top. I guess I'll turn on both sides. What is going on here? Yeah, this is broken. We'll start over. Just gonna create a new cylinder real quick. Cool. Let's get rid of that. Let's add some loop cuts, but just horizontal. Let's do the edge selection. There we go. Okay. And we'll put that like right there. We'll add another one based off of that one. So same thing, just using the InsertEdge command along with the select loop command here. There we go. So we can really square out that top a little bit. Okay. So I want to see what happens if I just push these two back with all those edges there now. All right, so the top is looking a lot better. So let's add, I want to add some other cuts, but if I insert an edge, okay, so yeah, like that's a problem because we have basically a tri-face. We have a triangle face on the top there. And that's what's messing us up. We need it to be all squares. So we'll do, well, we do have a triangle there already. Ah, okay. So let's do an insert edge from this loop. All for double curves. I swear double curves are, you could write a thesis on double curves. I'm sure people have. Okay, so we'll add this inner ring so we can just isolate the triangle just to right there, right? So if I want to now add another cut to this whole side, boom, no triangle. Nope, yeah, we were getting a triangle anyway. Why? I don't want a triangle. So we have to keep it somewhere here. And then I have to grab this edge, or maybe just having that edge there now. See, it's sticking out and breaking my cylinder. So the way I'd model this in, I would follow these exact same steps in Blender and not come up with this issue. So I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but what I'll do is I'll create a scaffold for myself. So this is useful. I'll do a just a circle geometry that extends from the center to the outer border, and I'll put this on a separate layer. Green. Green disappears. We'll put it on white. Just kidding. This layer was white and now it's not. Create a new layer and we'll make it red. Okay. So now I can grab that whole edge by selecting it here with our select edge loop. That's going to be our best friend. Do a scale 1D of that edge from the center point, right? Turn off all my snaps because I just want to select the edge here, projecting from the vertex. Okay, there we go. So right now I can just pull this edge in and out, right? And I'm going to snap it to that sphere, but that doesn't solve it, does it? If I snap it to the circle I just added, it somehow ends up too far inside. So I'm going to take to my commitment to sculpting. Oh, because I picked the wrong curve. The curve I should have picked, right? No, it's still just coming out weird. The shape never aligns. Scale 1D. Let's just say I do, okay, you know what? Let's turn this into a mesh and do the scale 1D. I don't get distracted. Okay, so actually this is helpful. In the mesh mode, I'll draw an extension of this curve, of this edge. Figured it out. Figured it out. So we can extend this edge this way. Cool. And we just need to mirror it with this one. Or just draw it out on the other side. Where's my projection settings? Why is it not allowing me to align? I'll just draw it there and then move it over. Basically just getting the intersection of these two edges. So I can just snap this darn edge right there. Oh, excuse me, the whole face, the whole side. Okay. Now, if this doesn't give me a perfect cylinder, I'm doing this type of stuff in Blender. I'm not doing it in Rhino. Okay, we'll try one more thing. Maybe I need a degree in something to do this. Not architecture. I got that one. All right, maybe that's it. If I just connect these two bridges and bring these two together. All right, does that not give a perfect cylinder? No. Because this is what I would refer to as a crease, let's say. Like, what I want it to do is to just continue smoothly through this point to the other. But it's reading this point as being a little bit harsher. So, or is there just now an issue with all my vertical pieces? Because I only moved that outer piece. So do I have to move? Yeah, like this is getting really into the nuance of it. But I might have to like move this whole side edge. Let's redo that. If I undo that, those last two moves, or just that last move, I'd want this whole edge to scale into where that corner is. I think that's what it is. So we'll do, checking the, what do I think of Blender versus Rhino? You haven't used Blender yet, generally. So they have different use cases, for me at least, I think. So I guess there's not necessarily like one type of thing that you can do and one that you can't do in the other. But I do think that Rhino lends itself a little better to doing documentation, like technical drawings and such, than doing more like CG stuff. So like anything that's more creative, more conceptual, artistic, motion graphics especially, like photorealistic rendering, all for free within Blender, is really, really good. So Rhino is good. This SubD thing is essentially like Rhino's implementation of a lot of these tools that we see in things like Blender and Maya and all that stuff, but it has some ways to go. But something that Rhino excels at incredibly well that Blender doesn't do is the NURBS stuff. So Blender is not good with a NURB modeling, which is what we did to get this result. But then this method works better in Blender. So it's just kind of like there's two different methods for two different use cases, in my opinion. Like if you're making technical drawings or you're doing like a product design, then the model needs to be optimized for fabrication or prototyping, or you're doing like CAD for architecture, engineering, or whatever, you want to do NURBS. And if you're doing something more creative, conceptual, artistic, you want to do meshes and you want to do SubDs. But yeah, just to kind of end this session out with some more commands, and if you have any more questions, throw them my way. I'm gonna do, what is it? Remove edge. So if I wanted to remove an edge, like say I wanted to get rid of these two, we have remove edge. Or is it now just, yeah, select surface edges to delete. That's for a surface. If I just hit remove. I'm gonna be honest, I used ChatGPT to help me put together this list of commands I needed, and it got a lot of them wrong. Remove edge SubD. Just select it and delete it? Doesn't that destroy the universe? No, it just makes a hole in it, right? No, it just makes... See, this is what I mean. Like, this in Blender wouldn't be possible because this is technically an impossibility. I guess it's not. It's not an impossibility. It just created an n-gon, which is a face with a bunch of way too many points and way too many edges. Like a mesh face is either a tri or a quad or an n-gon. And an n-gon is typically something like this. And as we can see, it is kind of broken. Or it's, you know, it's doing some weird stuff. Or overlapping itself. So if you're going to delete an edge, don't make an n-gon in the process. I guess if I were to delete this one, yeah, like it just made two tries into one try, or one quad, two quads into one quad. If you wanted to remove the amount of faces you had, I guess just to do like some cool stuff like that. I don't know. But yeah, we're getting away a little bit from the Apple experience. Let's do, you know what? Let's do this. And using those last tools, or recapping those tools that we've done, that we've gone over, we're going to use SubD to actually create like a centerpiece table for the inside. That makes way more sense. So I'm envisioning just something like hourglassy, but like rectangular. So we'll go to solid tools and we'll do, no, not solid tools, SubD tools. And we'll do a SubD box. And I'm just gonna snap that right into here. Kind of give it just the proportions that I want. And then turn it 90. And so what we want to do is we want to insert an edge loop. Typing. Insert edge. Select this middle one. Do both sides. And then we can just approach that towards their tops so we can get that harder edge. And come on, trying to snap it. There we go. Now we'll select this inner, or the middle loop, and I'm just gonna scale that in a whole ton. Bam! Futuristic, sci-fi, cool. We'll even take it another step. Select this bottom edge sneakily. Did I select it? No. There we go. And just make the bottom. Ooh. That was meant to select the whole edge. I'm gonna just pick it up. So yeah, when you get these weird corner situations, you kind of have to select them in groups. So each side is separate. And then I also want to add to that selection this top one. And just make the base a tad smaller than the top. Neat. We can add in, we want to flatten out the bottom. I mean, it's already pretty much there. We'll do insert another edge. Using, yeah, whatever. Just do it visually. And we'll point that inwards. Cool. That did not edge that out. So we'll do we'll just do a rectangle. So I want to flatten out the bottom of this SubD. That's what I'm trying to get at. So I added more faces. That didn't help. I'll just take that away. We'll add in a rectangle. So I'll go to my surface tools and just add a flat 2D rectangle based off of this shape right here. Whatever. Put it into place. Just want to move it somewhere under this piece. Ideally snapping to it. There we go. And then if we see this from a side view, there's our face right there. I'll extend it so you see it cutting through this one right here. We can select everything with Control Shift and then dragging a box from left to right. So holding Control Shift will select all those individual elements. But as you can see, like since I'm dragging a box and because it's from left to right, it's only what's contained inside that box, right? So I can just do that bottom. And I go and do a scale 1D. And since I'm scaling all these faces and all these points, I can do this from the side view. Or also boolean this after the fact. Yeah, I'm trying to scale everything down. Okay. That's good enough. Again, I'm going sculptural with this. If I were for fabrication, there's a few more steps I'd have to do to this, but or basically just turn it into an herb. Okay, so that's not bad. I'll even do this. So it has like a slot for the VR goggle. Like let's say what you do is you walk in and the VR headset is just placed right on top of here. Yeah, I don't want to punch down into this. I'll just keep that as one centerpiece. We'll move this forward. And yeah, since we had it envisioned for one to pick up the goggles and then use it within the screen, I mean, you'd want an open space. Wondering if I can use this table or this thing I've done for the entry. Yeah, let's get rid of this wall. Maybe not get rid of it, but let's make it a center wall. Move it back. So you enter through one side, exit through the other. I like that better. And then we get rid of this, and this is our entry table, our entry counter on the other side. So that when you walk in, I'm going to shift my view here to be really wide angle. This is what we see. Cool. And you sign in and you get your headset. Let's actually make this now bigger so we conceal a little bit. Conceal, not can see. So we conceal. I'm gonna just stretch it this way, and you know, I could possibly add a drawer in there or something, but only to this side. So over to insert edge for here and here, move that halfway, and then select these two edges again and just pull these two forward. All right. So yeah, that has more space for a drawer on this side. I just make the whole thing thinner. Ugh, now it looks off balance. So I'll grab these faces. Just move them in. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. Yeah. Maybe, oh, you know what I need to do? Let's just move these two edges up, actually. Up and out. Nice. Okay, and then those faces could be drawers, and they could be angled just like that, and they could slide out. All right, so we got one furniture piece in there. We've gone over SubDs at great length. Ho says he'd like to see V-Ray for Rhino for visualization. Definitely, that's something I can do for a future session. In fact, if I'm able to access a trial for V-Ray, that can make for tomorrow's stream to just kind of take what I've had here and start setting up a render for this. So yeah, we can have that up tomorrow, 8 p.m. V-Ray for Rhino. That's a pretty straightforward one. I'm just have to get onto the trial in order to do it. I've recently been exporting to Blender for my rendering, but I used V-Ray for Rhino extensively, and it's very easy to use. Thanks for tuning in, General 8. If you come back to this, I see you exited out through chat. But yeah, we can take a look at this for V-Ray for rendering for next session. But we covered some new modeling tools that we used to just kind of create a little interesting feature here for the entryway. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'm closing this one out. Any other questions that you'd have, you can always contact me, ask through chat. Always appreciate it. We'll tune in tomorrow at 8 p.m. to do V-Ray for Rhino and get some photoreal rendering within Rhino using the plugin. So see you tomorrow for that. Take care. Have a great night.